Welcome to UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk with Dr. Jenna Blasi. I'm Dr. Jenna. I spent years crafting ways to help women thrive, and I want to help you do the same. On this podcast, we dive deep into health at every level, focusing on the mind, the body, and the spirit. This is where real conversations meet transformational wellness. We'll be talking about all the things that truly matter, from nutrition and fitness to lifestyle, mindset, and personal development. Plus, the real deal on managing stress and navigating menopause. So if you're ready to elevate your health journey with authentic, transformative insights, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to UPLEVEL. Welcome to June. I can't believe it's June already. Here in Arizona, school is out. It's summertime. And I'm Dr. Jenna. In May, I talked a lot about how do we think clearly? How do we sift through the evidence, know how to trust ourselves, who to trust when we're working with mentors? I would like June to be executing clearly, right? Application month. How do you actually do this? So what we're going to talk about today is why you're not consistent, even when you know what to do. Because inconsistency is rarely about knowledge, right? Knowledge doesn't lead to implementation. So inconsistency is about plans that don't fit real life. For example, expectations that are maybe not in the right place, patterns they keep repeating, and absolutely self-image and identity. So many of the people that I talk to, you feel like you know what to do. You know what to do, but you're just not doing it consistently. And so this episode is geared towards those of you that's what you feel like. You're like, I know what to do. How do I do it? Or I'm not doing it. Because as I said, like most people don't have a knowledge problem, they have an execution problem. What I want to challenge today is the idea that the issue is you. Because most of the time it's not. It's how you're approaching it. And so what happens is we feel like it's us, I'm not disciplined, I'm not motivated, I'm lazy. You blame yourself. And then it's a vicious cycle, because when we're in guilt and shame, that's not incredibly motivating. We think that it is, but it's not. And so let's dive into what this might actually look like for you. Let's paint the picture that maybe feels familiar. You start the week strong. You're motivated. You have a plan. You're doing the workouts. You're eating well. Then life picks up. Work gets busy. I said we're going into summer, so maybe you've got trips planned. The schedule becomes a little more erratic. Maybe you're more tired. Something gets thrown off. And so by Friday, or if we put in the June context, or summer context, by July or by the end of June, things start slipping. But I'll stick with my week, right? Because this can happen within a week. You start strong on Monday, you have that plan, you're eating well, you're motivated, and then life is happening, you're getting more tired, work is getting busy, life is picking up, and then by the weekend, you already feel like you're off track. So then you reset, and you're gonna start again on Monday. Or maybe you start a new plan with a lot of intention, more workouts, stricter nutrition, more structure, and it works for a week or two, maybe even a month. Then it becomes too much to maintain. And slowly you fall out of it. And it feels like inconsistency, but there's actually a pattern underneath it. So let's talk about the myth of discipline. A lot of people think, I just need more discipline. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm huge on discipline. I'm huge on discipline, and I am a disciplined person. But discipline is just like motivation, discipline is an unreliable strategy if your plan only works when you're highly motivated. So there's kind of two issues that I'm bridging here. There's the discipline issue and there's the motivation issue. So discipline will not work when systems are broken, right? Let's say in my practice, we're all trying to be disciplined and get our work done in a timely manner and serve at the highest level. But if we don't have the systems, it really doesn't matter how great our discipline is. It's not really going to work. And then there's that motivation fluctuates. And a lot of people mistake discipline and motivation. They're like, oh, I have to be motivated. Well, your motivation is going to fluctuate. And if you're relying solely on willpower, that is a fragile strategy. If your plan only works when you're highly motivated, it's not a good plan. Because motivation fluctuates, life fluctuates, energy fluctuates. So if your plan depends on everything going right and you being fully motivated and energized and all those, it will absolutely fall apart. And this is where when we say, well, I didn't feel like it. Discipline and system should be exclusive of how you feel, right? I don't always feel like working out. I'm not entertaining that idea. If I entertain that idea, I won't do it nearly the amount that I do it. And we tend to do things based on how we feel. So let's break down some of the nuts and bolts of why people struggle with consistency. As a side note, I was thinking, what did I say? I was readjusting myself. I feel like that's redundant, right? Because adjusting inherently applies you're adjusting. Can you readjust yourself? Anyway, sorry, I just had to speak to that because I paused a little bit earlier after I said that. I'm like, does that even make sense? Okay, number one, and I've talked about this before, all or nothing thinking. I have a whole podcast episode on how we have to get out of perfectionism and all or nothing thinking. This is one of the biggest drivers, all right? It's, if I can't do it perfectly, what's the point? Or, oh, I already messed up today, so I'll start fresh tomorrow. I'll start again tomorrow. We get this kind of sense of like, why bother? If it's not exactly how I wanted it to be and what I said I committed to, why bother? So this could look like a missed workout and your whole week is derailed. And so what's tricky is this doesn't feel like quitting. It feels like resetting. But in reality, it will keep you stuck in a loop because consistency is not built on perfect days. All right? Hear what I'm saying. Consistency is not about perfection. Consistency isn't built on perfect days. It's built in the in-between. The days when we show up and we don't feel like it. The days when we show up for 10 minutes instead of our planned hour because life got a little crazy, but we showed up. And the thing is every time you don't show up, every time you allow yourself to get derailed because it wasn't perfect, because you missed a workout, because you ate some cake, whatever, this actually chips away at your identity. And you're holding a lower standard. You're holding yourself to a lower standard. It's like a friendship where if we keep accepting bad treatment, bad behavior in that friendship, that's our standard. So what standard are you accepting for yourself? And so it starts to chip away at our integrity with ourselves and our identity. Now, again, I think all of January was largely about being consistent and the identity behind that. Identity-based behavior. If you want to go back and listen to any of those January podcasts, there was a lot of focus there. Okay, number two, overly aggressive plans. We know these. We've seen these. They usually come from a good place. You know, you're like, yes, I'm motivated. I want change. I want to do it right. But it's typically too much too fast, which leads to overwhelm and not being able to do anything and unsustainable routines. And so when the plan becomes more workouts, more structure, more restriction, more intensity, and initially maybe it works, but then it doesn't match your actual life. It's not sustainable. So it becomes this exhausting thing to maintain, and eventually it breaks. Number three, a mismatch just with your life in general. All right. And this is something I think people probably don't talk about enough. Your plan might make sense on paper. Your plan might make sense for your friend. But does it fit your life, your schedule, your energy, your stress, your sleep, your responsibilities? I could go on and on. I mean, the episode I did about personalization of medicine It does matter what your unique challenges, stressors, energy, phase of life, etc. are. Because if there's a life mismatch, if it doesn't match, it will not be sustainable, no matter how good the plan is. Now, this is not an excuse to set lower standards. I see this a lot online where people will say, well, sure, easy for you to say. People haven't said this to me, but I've seen this on other people's posts. Easy for you to say because you don't have XYZ. Easy for you to say because you're not in my situation. There is an attitude and a mindset behind getting what you want, and that is not it. That's excuse mode. Right? Oh, I'm a single mom, so I could never X. Oh, so I could never do this. Well, you don't understand what it's like. That keeps us in victim and excuse mode of why we're not doing the thing. So I want to make a clear distinction here. Life mismatch, if that is your situation, that doesn't mean you can't move your body. That doesn't mean you can't eat well, but it could mean it doesn't look like what it does look like for someone that has no kids, who's working part-time and not full-time, and their ability to commit to a certain program of exercise or wellness or whatever. But my whole goal with all of these podcasts is making wellness accessible. People getting to work with us in our one-on-one, in what we offer, that's not going to feel accessible at all times to everybody. And so, how do we get out of the excuses and get into results? Because if you're a single mom, I remember when I was in residency, I didn't have kids yet, but my schedule was crazy. I had to be across town on rotation at the hospital at like 7 a.m. and all the things, but still exercise, still meditate, still spend time with my husband, etc. So there's always ways to do things depending on what your goal is and what your standards are. So for example, if you're a single mom and you're exhausted, and so you're like, oh, I'm too exhausted to do the things. Well, if you implemented one or two things that actually helped you with your energy, you'd be more efficient in your day. And so typically there's a lot of other factors that go into it besides just family life. Like I said, your schedule is one for sure, your family life, but your energy, your stress, etc. And so when we start navigating the true challenges with the goal to feel better, to have more energy, to sleep better, to have better metabolism, etc., you absolutely can do that, I believe, in any stage of life, in any circumstances. All right. But still match it up to your life, right? If when I was in residency, I was like, I'm going to train to do a marathon, maybe that wasn't the time. Maybe that would have been a life mismatch, right? But I could say, hey, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes every day. Now, I was in between those things, but I hope you understand the point that I'm trying to make. And then the fourth is lack of structure. So on the flip side, sometimes the issue isn't doing too much. It's that doing something without structure, without parameters. It's too vague. I'm going to try to eat better. That is very vague. I'll try to work out more. Vague. That's not a plan. That's an intention. And intentions don't create consistency. Structure does. So vague goals lead to inconsistent action. Okay, so you might be wondering, if you feel inconsistent, if you're like, why do I just do the thing and fall off and do the thing and fall off? Like, why does this keep happening? There is a deeper layer here. Starting something new feels good. It gives you a sense of control, a sense of progress. But sustaining something requires a different skill. So if we're relying on the skill that it took to get started versus the skill that it takes to maintain, it's a different skill. Think about relationships. In the beginning of a lot of relationships, it's rainbows and butterflies and oh, this is so exciting. But how do you maintain something over time when that, the thrill is gone, so to speak? So this requires patience, requires repetition, it requires tolerance for imperfection, And it requires like understanding that your results may change. Because sometimes in the beginning, you're going to get like a lot of quick movement, and not always, okay? But like you're like, oh my gosh, I feel better and I'm this. And then that kind of levels off, and then we lose interest. But the changes in your body composition, in your clarity, in your, I believe there's several levels to keep up leveling. There's infinite levels to keep up leveling, but it doesn't always look the same over time. And this can be harder for people. This is why many people end up chasing that feeling of starting. It's exciting. Oh, this is going to be the thing, instead of building the skill of continuing. All right. So let's break down what actually creates consistency. If you want to change this pattern, now there's also an identity under this pattern. And that's a deeper topic, which is why I said I talk a lot about identity from January. Let's talk about what actually creates consistency. Because if you want to change the pattern, the goal is not to try harder, it's to change how you approach it. So, number one, do less. This might feel counterintuitive, but most people need to scale their plan back a little bit, not because you're incapable, but because you're maybe trying to do too much at once. That's like dive all in. I'm all in. I want you all in on your health. Absolutely. I want you to thrive and be all in. But this is why, like in our programs, every week builds on the next. We don't need to be working harder. We need to be working smarter. So that may involve doing less. Again, not because someone is incapable, because they're trying to do too much at once. And then number two, make it repeatable. Ask yourself, when you're setting up a plan, can I do this even on a busy, stressful day? Because if the answer is no, it's not a sustainable plan. Because let's face it, most of us have plenty of busy and stressful days. Now, some are worse than others, but make it something repeatable. Don't commit to a 2-hour whatever if most of the time you're not going to have 2 hours to commit. All right? Which leads us to number three. We're building a floor, not a ceiling. Because you can always add on. You can always meditate longer. You can always journal for longer. You can always exercise longer. But if you overcommit, then you won't do anything. You'll feel like you're failing. That will chip away at your self-esteem, your identity, your consistency, and then you're in this vicious loop cycle. This is what I don't love about, is it 75 strong? I don't know a lot about it. And I know people are there's probably some of you out there going, I love that. Don't talk bad about it. But all I know about it is if you miss a day, you have to go back and start all over. I don't like that mentality at all. I don't like that mentality at all, because it's feeding into everything that I believe feeds into inconsistency. Now, their point is like you're building consistency and you have to stay consistent, right? I'm sure. And so they're like, if you miss a day, you have to start all over. But that's where we get into that all or nothing thinking. So building a floor, not a ceiling. Instead of asking, what is the most I can do? How can I maximize? What can I always come back to? Because this is going to create stability. I have a pretty big meditation routine, pretty big commitment, but I have a floor that on my busiest days, I'm not willing to go below. And then my ceiling is great. Ideally I'm doing the whole practice most if not all of the time, but at least I'm doing something when I'm not. So not what is and even within that practice, there's more we can add on top of it. So what is the piece that I can always come back to? And then you build from there. And number 4, and this is a really important one, expect disruption. Life is messy. Your week is not going to go perfectly. That's normal, all right? That doesn't mean you failed. That is normal. I've talked about how there's some people that choose, they're like, oh, this isn't the time for me to, move forward working with you because I can't give it my all right now and I'm not going to be able to be all in. And it's like, when do all our ducks ever really line up? Right? I mean, this is life. This is about learning to be healthy and feel better and bring your body into a thriving state or an up-leveled state while life is happening, not while you're on vacation. So expect disruption and don't call it failure. Consistency is built in how you respond when things don't go as planned. Let that sink in. Consistency is built in those in-betweens, in how you respond when things don't go as planned. And I've said this before, those of you that feel like you've tried all these things and you fall off and it's you're not failing your plan, you're not failing your diet, your plan is failing you. The diets have failed you because they didn't take all these things into account. They maybe weren't individualized to you, maybe they weren't didn't have the right puzzle pieces, but that's not you. As I said in the beginning, like that's not you. So if you have no margin for real life, that's what I feel like 75 Strong does. I probably should know more about it before I say anything about it. So don't come at me. But no margin for real life. If it's not adaptable, if it doesn't allow flexibility, which is my next point, flexibility, it's not a great plan. All right. And I'm big on expectation and expecting that we can achieve amazing things. But then in the day-to-day, we don't want to set ourselves up for feeling like we're constantly not meeting these expectations. So we have to know how to think about things in terms of mindset and growth and big goals while also keeping that energy in the day-to-day that works within our lives. And so the flexibility piece is not being rigid. All right. And it's not giving into chaos, but being able to have structure and commitment and consistency that it looks different on different days. It's flexible. And then the final one, and this is a big one, is the identity shift. And you can start to do little parts of that now. I'm not going to dive into identity today, but if you say, well, this is what I do, I'm inconsistent, like let's stop repeating that identity. And let's not say like I'm trying. I love when people say to me, I say, are you moving your body, or how often do you exercise? Well, I try to exercise 2 to 3 days a week. What does that mean? Tell me what you're doing. What are you doing? I exercise 2 days a week. I exercise 3 days a week. Not you're trying. Have that floor. I exercise 2 to 3 days a week. I can figure that occasionally, and then you could say occasionally life happens and I only get 2 in, or I only get 1 in, but I always get something, or occasionally it's less. So start to have the identity like this is what I do. I'm consistent. I show up. I eat well. I exercise. Those I am statements are very, very powerful. And stop repeating the pattern of the failures. Stop repeating the pattern, but that's easier said than done. Stop speaking to the pattern. I'm not disciplined. I am. Be careful with your I am statements. In fact, I want to revoke what I just said because I only want the positive I am statements. So the I ams should be the identity that you are striving for. The identity that is your new standard, not giving in to where you think you're at now or where your past was. Okay? So in closing, we drill in. Consistency is not about being perfect. It's not about being perfect. Same with discipline. It is about having a plan that works even when life feels like it's going sideways. Feels like life is not working. And for most people, the shift is not doing more. Now, I've said in past episodes, like if you're not moving your body, you got to get moving your body, right? If you have 3 unhealthy meals a day, you've got to get start with 1 healthy meal, and then a second, and then a third. All right. But for most people, it's not about doing more. It's about doing what actually works in a way you can keep doing and have the structure, the plan, the understanding, the mentorship, all of the pieces that are going to help you keep doing it so that it becomes your new way of life, so that it becomes easier to do than not to do. When we're changing a pattern, it can feel like it's easier not to do than to do. But when we work on the identity and we stay flexible and we keep showing up, even if it's partially, eventually it's harder not to do it than to do it. It's harder to hopefully not brush your teeth than it is to brush your teeth, because you're like, oh, I didn't brush my teeth. Get that way with the things that are going to keep you healthy. All right. So final reflection piece here for you. Ask yourself, what am I trying to do right now that's too much? Where can you simplify? And what could you do consistently at least 70%? So what would it look like to simplify and actually stick with it? And think about what that identity would feel like if you simplified, but you were just building consistency, building identity, because it follows that: behaviors and results. Your identity leads to your behaviors, and your behaviors are what lead to your results. And this is mind, body, emotion, into action, into results. Now, that's a whole nother mindset talk, but understand it starts with our thinking. We'll hear it in our language. Change is linguistic first. So it starts with our thinking and then how we embody that and the vibration we have. Do you have the vibration of someone who's consistent? Do you have the vibration and thoughts and feelings of someone who's successful and someone who is just crushing it? Because those people have bad days, but they understand that that doesn't mean failure and they keep going. All right. So thoughts coming from the identity of the person and the feeling and the health that you want, into feelings, into those behaviors, actions, and then results. All right. So thank you so much for joining me. And we are going to dive into different aspects of this topic throughout the month and make all of this content really applicable. So thank you so much. See you next time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of UPLEVEL, Real Health, Real Talk. I hope today's conversation inspired you to take the next step in your health journey, one that nourishes not just your body, but your mind and spirit as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's episode, please leave a review. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thriving. And remember, true wellness is a journey, and you are on the right path.